All right, all right, we are live. Good night, everyone viewing. Good night, everyone tuning in. Good morning to those watching us from a different part of the world. And good evening to those watching us on the other part of the world, the one way, no morning. All right, so I would like to welcome you all to the Heritage Education Network. Tonight we are having a very informative discussion talking about globalization and the Garifuna culture. We will be having a panel of 3 individuals. Okay. And we will be talking about the impacts of globalization on the Garifuna culture. Before we get into that, let's have a small thing on what is the Heritage Education Network. Now, the Heritage Education Network is an organization that was formed earlier this year that talks predominantly about culture, history, and is a nonprofit organization led by a group of archaeologists, heritage professionals, and tourism and business industry leaders who work to support heritage education and the sustainable development of tourism and creative business. Tonight, we are completing a small series under the title The Garifuna Project, which is an anthological project, where we started our first presentation on the 18th of November with Clayton Williams to bring in the 19th. We had a discussion on language on the 21st with Miss Eleanor Bullock. And tonight, we are wrapping up with the final presentation where I have Emilio Thomas and Jamall Swaso. The goal of the Heritage Education Network is to facilitate the sustainable development of communities, businesses, and organizations in the cultural, creative, and tourism sector who are key stakeholders in the maintenance of culture and natural heritage. By offering online courses, educational resources, consultation, community engagement, capacity building projects, we aim to position local communities as influential and resilient heritage stakeholders. Now, I would like to take this moment to say that my name is Rasheed Palacio and I'm a volunteer with the Heritage Education Network. And I would like the other 2 panelists to introduce themselves. So I think it's best we start off with Mr. Jamall Swaso.
Good night, everyone. My name is Jamall Swaso. I was asked by the Heritage Organization through Mr. Rasheed Palacio to do a presentation, be involved in this presentation about globalization and its impacts on Guaranagar of Belize. I'm grateful to be here. My current occupation is a public servant, a public officer within the Ministry of Human Development, and part-time I do interviews for different organizations, specifically for True Southern Belize Media. So I'm grateful to be here and to have been given this opportunity to share some of my views and the views shared to me by others with the through this medium granted to me by the Heritage Organization of Belize.
Okay. Thank you, Jamal, for being here. Now, Emilio.
Having some technical difficulties.
Okay, well.
Sorry about that. I was I don't know what's wrong. I can't hear you. I realized that Jamall introduced himself on Facebook, but what I'm hearing from this side is very different. I'm supposed to introduce myself. I did not hear the question.
Just introduce yourself.
Yes.
I will introduce Emilio. One moment. Okay. Emilio Thomas is a professional singer, songwriter, and producer in Dangriga Town. He is a member of the
I'm
Garifuna
Emilio
Culture
Thomas from
Spread.
the Garifuna Collective. Um, I'm Emilio Thomas from the Garifuna Collective. Um,
Okay, thank you, Emilio. Now let's get to the meat of the matter of tonight's presentation. And we will start off with an overview of what we will be talking about tonight. Okay, so we will be talking about the past, the present, and the future when it comes to the Garifuna culture. And through that, it will propel us into the question and answer segment where you, the viewers, get to ask us questions that we will try our best to answer. And we will try to keep them very constructive, very concise, and just try to make the most of our time together here, where the three of us will definitely try to cause a impact so that in the near future we can see great change within the community. Now, I will be starting off with talking a bit about the history of the Garifuna people, and from there, Jamall will jump in talking about the present, as well as Emilio. And lastly, we will be discussing the future, where it will be open discussion. And from that, we will then be propelled into the question and answer segment. So stick with us tonight and let's make the most of everything that's happening here. Okay.
Can we ask everyone to share the live?
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is who are the Garifuna people? Now, I know that some of you may know who the Garifuna people are, but this is a sense of context to help those who are new to Belizean culture, new to the Garifuna people, and just to give a sense of context of the discussion tonight so that you can follow along the other parts of the presentation a bit better. So, let's get to it. Okay, the Garifuna people are an ethnic Afro-Caribbean indigenous group who originated from the Eastern Caribbean, notably St. Vincent, through a mixing of indigenous populations of the Kalinago, or previously referred to as Caribs, and the Taino, previously referred to as Arawaks, with Black Africans. According to Dr. Joseph Palacio, the Garifuna people originated by blending two of the founding races of the region, the Aboriginal, Native American, and African. They were formed within the umbrage of slavery and took up the ultimate form of resistance, fighting to the death for their homeland in the eastern Caribbean island of St. Vincent. Their history is full of suffering, resistance, and survival. Today, as citizens of countries in Central America, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, they are victims of poverty, disease, and neglect. Now, I think that this is a very powerful extract. This extract was from one of Dr. Joseph Palacio, who is an anthropologist who talk extensively about Garifuna culture because it lends to a snippet of what the people have also gone through, what the Guaranagar people have gone through, and continue to go through within the region and diaspora. The next part would be how did they get to Belize? According to Habinaha Garinago Tiba Ligisi Kotaliga, Garifuna Survival Day Youth Jamboree 2019, the exile of the Garifuna people is one of to be best described as the exodus of our people from their homeland because of the callous behavior of the British. Between July 1796 to March 1797, around 4,338 to 5,000 plus Garinago were imprisoned on Baliso, an island unfit for human inhabitation, and on March 11th, 1979, 2,248 Garinago boarded 11 ships. These ships briefly docked in Jamaica to reload and then made their way to the island of Roatan, Honduras, where they landed on April 12th, 1797. Those who survived the journey settled and tried to make the island home. In 1802, this journey continued as Garifuna folk left Honduras in hopes to escape political persecution. This led to the immigration of Garifuna from Spanish Honduras to be later what is later known as British Honduras, now Belize, where they formally settled in the south of the Sibun River. British Honduras boundary extended from the Sibun River to the Starstoon, showing evidence that some Garifuna settlements predate the Belizean borders. Now let's talk briefly about contributions to Belizean society. Since immigrating to Belize, the Guaranagar population has steadily supplied the country with its civil servant workforce. Many Garifuna people have taken up the mantle of teachers, nurses, policemen, soldiers, just to name a few, in addition to holding notable positions in the government of Belize, as well as the Garifuna people have also been recognized internationally for their skillful musicians, artists, craftsmen, and historians known for preserving Garifuna culture, as well they share it to the world at large. You can now find members of the Garifuna community in various aspects of Belizean society, and wherever there's a Belizean community, it's likely you're to find a member of that Garifuna population there as well. My last major point is tying it to the significance of the day of the 19th of November. It celebrates the arrival of the Garifuna people onto the shores of Belize on November 19th, 1802, and celebrates and symbolizes an official recognition of the Garinago people and their immense contributions to Belize as the country and the Belizeans as a diverse people. This led to a series of letters written by Thomas Vincent Ramos between November 19th, 1939 to 1941 to the governor of Stan Creek District before being granted a holiday only in Dangriga Town on 1943. In 1970, the holiday was lobbied to be expanded to the rest of the country. It was later dubbed Carib Arrival Day, changed later to Garifuna Settlement Day, and was expanded to the rest of the country in 1977. I think that gives people a definite context on who we are as a people, where we've come, things we've had to go through, and it poises us now to know that it gives us a sense of where we are now, and from that, I will definitely say that We've come a long way, but we still have a lot more to go as a people as we fight discrimination in some aspects of society. We fight cultural assimilation, as you have a lot of young people who don't acknowledge the significance of our culture, our language, our food, and various aspects of our lifestyle. And it makes us beg the question, where will we be in the next 10 to 15, 30 years? Now, well, that said, I would pass on the presentation to Mr. Jamall Swaso, as he will have a brief discussion on the present day. So, Jamal, you ready?
Yeah, I'm just popping up the screen now. Alright. Alright then. You're seeing the presentation?
Yes, Jamal, we can see it.
Alright then. So now I'm going to start our presentation that I will ask. So the presentation will be on Guaranagar, the impacts of globalization. So firstly, I will just define what is globalization. Globalization is the spread of products, technology, information, and jobs across national borders, cultures in terms of economic in economic terms, it is described as the interdependence of nations around the globe fostered by free trade. Now, it should be understood that globalization can be a powerful force for poverty reduction, and many countries have seen improvement in their welfare and education system because of globalization. So, Mr. Rashid already gave a breakdown of the history of Garifuna globalization or movement. Before the term globalization was popular, there were many other words that were used in that could be considered a part of globalization. These were trade routes, exploration, and the lesser discussed slave trade. The Garifuna, from our arrival to the Americas, have participated in the globalization. Our participation is documented through the slave trade ship narrative or through the narrative of the King Abu Kari the second of the Mali Empire and his expedition to the Americas. The Guaranagar engagement in globalization has been filled with glorious moments and dark times. Such is the history. Not only a beautiful story. So here I have some pictures, right? The pictures of our engagement with the French/British within St. Vincent, our movement. So our sad story, our sad reality that we were exiled from St. Vincent, and then our movement from there to our new home, which was Honduras, and then we populated parts of Guatemala and Honduras. If you can see from the middle photo, and then we have our new dynamics that we found here, that we developed here within Central America, and that can be seen in picture number 3. And where we have our new engagement, our new style of clothing, keeping some of our practices that we had in St. Vincent. So my presentation focus will be on globalization and its impacts on political, economical, and social impacts. Do I need to stop? Hello?
No, no, you can keep going.
Okay. Politically, globalization has impacted Garinago and Belize politically to a large extent. The Garinago of Belize have had an opportunity to representation and governance at a national and local government level. This does not mean that Garifuna are well represented politically in terms of governance in Belize. Impacts of Garifuna caused by political situations. Garifuna have become lesser and lesser represented in terms of political influence over the years. This has come with the movement of people and the rise of influence and international policies on the Garifuna communities. In most Garifuna communities, we have seen the increase in ethnicities, mainly from our Central American neighbors. This has caused a really small population of Garifuna in Belize to have a reduced impact on who will represent them and the communities they were once the predominant population. We could situations of Garifuna politics. Many people did not even know the fact that Dr. Theodore Aranda was once the party leader for the United Democratic Party, and that he, when the transition was taking place from the People's United Party, Dr. Theodore Aranda was responsible for revitalization of the United Democratic Party because he was the party leader. So many people do not know that history of Garifuna engagement in higher level politics is a sad reality that Dr. Theodore Aranda did not become the prime minister. Instead, Mr. Manuel Esquivel became the prime minister when Dr. Theodore Aranda was the party leader. So, international policies, continue the presentation. International policies, a popular term in Garifuna communities and used by organizations and other ethnic groups, have used the Garifuna must move away from the perception of being ethnocentric. This has seen the rise of non-Garifuna being elected in communities controlled politically by Garinago. Now we could see example of this in Dangriga. Dangriga was once all our area representatives of Dangriga have always been Garinago, of Garinago descent. Now, because of policies change and globalization and influence of outside policies and financiers, the Garinago are now in a situation where they are being displaced from dominating the political scenes in the communities where they were once the predominant population. And this has caused where now we have, for probably the second time in the history of Dangriga, a non-Garifuna being elected as the political representative for this constituency, which was once and still is, we still could be predominantly populated by Guaranagar people. Now we have that changing in our political policies and political dynamics within our community. Economically, the Garinago were once regional traders and traders within Belize, trading in staple foods and other productions. The Garinago used to trade from Belize, used to trade with other Garinago communities in Honduras, and also while we were at St. Vincent, we were traders as well. And we used to trade with Belize. We used to take our products outside of Dangriga, selling it to the Maya communities and also to Belize, which was the commercial capital at that time, and still is the commercial capital. Garinago are no longer as established as traders as they once were. However, Garinago and Belize have taken other routes of economic engagement. Thanks to the impacts of globalization, those other contributions are in the fields of education. We cannot neglect the fact that Garifuna contribution to education has presented an economic platform and an economic basis for Belize. And that has come about by the impacts of globalization. So we have, for instance, we have like Cornelius Cacho, who was a top senior person within the World Bank. And that is a contribution to the global dynamics of the world. And education is very much necessary within some contribution to the economic development of Belize and the world. We have Ana Castillo, we have Aaron Lewis, the physicist, we have Dr. Martinez, who is a space scientist. We have many different people who have contributed the education capacity to the economic development of the new Belize. And it has supported our globalization efforts of our country. We have become consumers. Garinago has become partially one of the number one consumers. We are consumers, we are laborers, and we provide remittances that are coming into our country through Western unions and other means that to build homes, to provide for family members. That is a benefit of globalization, of other Garifuna leaving Belize and going elsewhere and becoming economically productive, and they are able to send home remittances to our country. Bearing in mind that we are no longer as solidified agriculturally, we still participate in agriculture, that we are able to do, we have Garifuna who have farmland and are producing farmland and supplying the market. So the impact of the knowledge gained through globalization and other, you know what I mean? Am I coming clear across clearly?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? All right. The impacts of globalization through agriculture has ensured that we have still been able to keep some of our agricultural practices and intermarry it with the new practices brought about through the engagement here in Belize. So agriculture has been impacted by globalization. Social. Guaranagar's social orientation has been influenced by our history of engagement with other groups and religious organizations over the past centuries. Our socialization that led to adjustment in our language. The language that we speak is not necessarily the same that we used to speak in St. Vincent. That came with the engagement with the British, with the French, and so on. That on St. Vincent. And now carry on to our exile. Continue with our exile. Our engagement in Honduras and Guatemala with the Spaniards, with the Spanish or the mestizos, there that change added a different dynamics to our language. Then coming to Belize now, where we had a more creolized society, a society with dynamic influences from Maya, from the mestizo, the East Indians. Those had an impact in the way how we talk, the way how we engage through language. All our stops, all our different locations that we have, that is globalization, the movement of people. So that has affected our language. And it might not be the same as how we used to speak it, but it has the benefits of globalization. Though this was forced, many of our movement here were forced, it affected the dynamics of our language. Social contribution continued. Our spiritual practice has been impacted also. We have seen through assimilation to the Roman Catholic Church practices into Garifuna spirituality. And now an increasing popularity of evangelical churches amongst Guaranagar of Belize. We could see the benefits of this, or some may say the detriment. But one benefit that we have of being in the Roman Catholic Church, we had two bishops of Belize being of Garifuna descent. And we have had many priests, nuns, and so on being a part of the Roman Catholic Church. And we have now taken some of the dogma from the Roman Catholic Church and implanted it into our spiritual practices, and to cause preservation, and that is an impact of globalization. It was either people, many consider it negative and some consider it positive. And now with the growth of evangelical churches amongst the Guaranagar people, we have many of evangelical churches whose predominant influence is through our voices and through our songs. Because unlike the link to the Roman Catholic Church, the evangelical churches are merely for our expression and speaking our language. The spiritual aspects of our Guaranagar are not necessarily as welcome within the evangelical churches we're here in Belize. Family structures. Garifuna family structures has been influenced by American concepts mainly because of migration and media. Because we have family members who, because of that generational movement, that migration that took place, many of our family members went to support our families. That changed our family structures, that it became more dependent on that remittance. And so the larger families, we had larger families became less and less. Our grandparents became the head of this household. No generational, like, mother had to go to states. So they were not necessarily here to take care of the children or to take them to the farm or teach them principles. The media influence. Media, American media has completely changed the dynamics of how Garifuna people see family. It has adjusted to whatever many families have adjusted to the American concept of family dynamics. That's about it for my presentation in terms of social, political, and economic impacts of globalization on the Guaranagar.
Okay, thank you, Jamal. Emilio, you want to jump in?
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. I had to switch to mobile data. Uh, I think Jamal said it all. I don't know if there's much for me to say in regards to that, but I believe that we have an idea of where we came from because of the continuous flow of, or the repeating of the journey from Yorome leading on to Belize. We have a strong sense of identity. But one thing that has been clear to us is that the education system in the Garifuna communities, or I would say the Belize education system, has failed many generations, and we are victims of that, as well as everybody else. We have this situation whereby people, we talk about culture, yes, but we really don't know what culture is and how to express it effectively because of the fact of, as a result of globalization, when you have assimilation that comes into play, when we have to adapt, we have to learn so many languages and mix. We accommodated so many people, right? The more we valued other people's properties, the less we kept on to our own. So we're reaching out to other things. We're adapting. We struggled through the process. It's like when I'm in Belize City, a lot of my cousins and friends who are Garifuna, they don't identify as Garifuna. And even the ones that do, they're not going to do it in front of a Creole or a mestizo person. Like it's a very different situation than if you go to the South. When we have relatives in many parts of the country, that is a result of the education, the educators that migrated to these parts in our history. Uh, so every time when someone speaks, they will tell you about a Garifuna teacher who taught them a word or two, who told them stories. In our culture, we have the culture has changed significantly because people, for example, in the homes, this is where it starts. The Garifuna culture starts in the homes. It doesn't start in schools. It should be emphasized on and supposed to be promoted in schools. But the home, in the family, is where the Garifuna culture starts. If you look at in a simple home in any of the Garifuna communities, how many times do we cook Garifuna foods or prepare them, even if in our own ways? All right. How many times do we sing or listen to the music? A lot. A lot. There are certain things that we select, that we emphasize on in the among our people, but there are other things that we are slowly not doing. And so, like Americanization, the mere fact that you are wearing everything but your Garifuna attire, that's an indication. But why not make a cool dashiki that people will want to hear? I mean, people will want to wear. Why not make something and transform what we have, what we own? So I think that we have a responsibility of strengthening what we have. Many people do not have the values of the Garifuna culture. And when you have the values and recognize what we own as a people, our intellectual property, our capital property, like once we identify these key things and we look at the laws that are associated with these rights that we have, then we will transform what we own, what we're entitled to. Because I think that we can do a better job. We're doing a we are doing an okay job in preserving the culture, but we should do more than just preserve it. We should grow it. We should allow it to evolve. Because if I if you look at how things used to be and how things are, many aspects of our culture has transformed, but we can do a far better job and play a better role in exercising what we own, what we have, so that the younger generation can see, so that they can experience it with us. Not only when the 19th of November comes, we're going to be talking about Garifuna. This should be an ongoing thing, and we emphasize it in November, thanks to TV Ramos and all the others who were a part of that. But I believe it should be a weekly thing. Okay, so when it comes to our people moving forward, this is the kind of thinking that I have on or the conversations that I have with my friends and associates, my students, that we need to focus on what is coming and we have to be present in the process. We have to look at the positive things that we have and don't dwell on what happened or what we don't have. Because one good thing about our people is that we were good at making use of the things that were in front of us. And that has changed. Simple values from home did not transcend into something greater. And that is evident in our community. In regards to political representation, even if we don't have a minister or so to represent us, we have power that we gave up, because a minister cannot change a situation among our people. We are the ones with the power, and we need to be aggressive about it. I think we've been so accommodating and passive that we have insulted the works of those before us, and we need to really put ourselves in check. Each one of us has to do that. What do we really want? We have to sit down with self, and as a community, as a people, what do we really want? What do we have? How are we going to do what we want to get done? We have to have long-term and short-term goals. We have to be more active. So many things are conversations like unity and working together. Every time someone is starting a new project, every time somebody is trying to get everybody together, that will not work. We already have what is called NGC, which is the representation of Garifuna people within the space of Belize. If you have a problem with the way it is being governed, then be a part of it. I don't think you should have an opinion about something if you are not a part of it. You are a Garifuna like everybody else in the country. So if you want to initiate a specific change in an area, then I think you should be a part of it, not look at it on the outside and criticize and do nothing. My area is music. This is not even my area of expertise, but I had to become the change that I want to see. And the only way I can do this change is to educate other musicians. I had to go and learn in order to come back and educate my brothers and sisters who are interested in moving our people forward through music. Okay, so that is how you develop and change the economy. That is how you gain economic power. It's not about money, it's about using the most valuable assets or the resources, the people and the land. We have to work it. We have to work what we have, because I believe that we have lost direction. We are given impressions, yes, but we need to follow up. We need to do. I have grown tired of the conversations about things that I got silent over the years for many reasons. I got discouraged in attending meetings and things that I knew would not work, because I don't think that we're prepared for the change that we want to make. We need to do more and say less. So when it comes to globalization, all the influences from the different spaces, especially the United States and their good way of commercializing what they have over there and what they intend to do with everyone else. I think being a victim of that, being victims of that as a people has really added to what we were already going through within Belize and the other regions. We can do more if that is really the intention. It's like in schools, they are going to teach children about likes and dislikes, and they're going to teach children hard and easy. Children don't think like that. Those are adults' way of thinking. Those are adults' attitudes. If a child wants to do something that he or she finds interesting, they're going to learn it and take the time to learn it. You don't have conversations about hard and easy with children, or else you're slowing down their learning process. So there are many things that I would eliminate from the school system if I had the opportunity. Maybe I do have the opportunity through the conversations that I would have with children, because we have a responsibility in the communities, like Jamall, his interaction with the young people in our space, it may have made a significant difference in the way they think. And we will find that out based on how they go about doing what they do. It doesn't matter what someone does for a living, it doesn't matter what direction they take, but being biased to what works or what can generate income or what you can do for a living, those things should not be taught in school. The school should not be limited to the professions that everybody so-called want. So sometimes I had a conversation with someone about um, what is your perspective, right? What is your dream? Because everybody's dream is in alignment with what everybody else wants, and what everybody else wants is not really what they want. Some people pursued something and they never went through the entire process. My family and friends, they respect me and the others who kept doing what we are all about, our passion, and that has not changed. So I believe that as a people, if we really want something, this cannot be a conversation. The conversations will not work. We have to be objective. We have access to many resources needed to get the job done, but we do not have the minds or the people with the intention to get it done. We do not have the participation of our people to get the things done. And the reason why I'm being realistic about things is because these are things that I experience in many of the Garifuna communities. We have to get back to the sense of working together and actually supporting each other, even if you don't like something, or if that person's vision is not in alignment with yours. We need each other. We have to take advantage of our human resources. We have to help the best way we could. So I believe that that would be a part of my contribution to what Jamall, what we are all about this evening. Um, I really I'm really, really advocating for people to have a mind of their own and don't blame things, because when we were taught to blame each other, we forgot the sense of being responsible for each other and being responsible for what we really want to get done. Do not put the government responsible for things. Work with them. Do not put NGC responsible for things. Work with them, contribute significantly, and let the change happen. I don't see anything else working.
Okay, on that note, I could definitely say that you created a very, you made a very powerful statement. And with that, I think it's best we start with answering some of the questions. Um, the first questions would be from Miss Rebecca Friedel Whitley Houston. She is one of the directors at HEN. So good night, Rebecca. I know that you're tuning in. And her question is, as a nation without its own state borders, how do Garifuna communities maintain a common identity and increasingly globalized world? Love this discussion so much. Thank you, Rebecca, for your question. I
Hello.
think that we also use the term Garifuna very often when we talk about ourselves as a community, because as anyone identifies themselves as Garifuna, we have a oneness with that person most of the time. We could definitely say that regardless of which part of the world, once we find that commonality, it propels us to have a more active form of engagement and relationship with that person, even for a short moment. So when it comes to maintain a common identity, you're starting to see more and more initiatives where, well, I know that Belize was one of the front runners of going into other spaces to promote Garifuna culture. Um, Early on, when organizations like NGC and other individuals got together between 20 to 30 years ago, they would go into spaces like Honduras. Uh, because you see, we were one of the first to establish an organization and start in the preservation process. Even though we might not have, we talk a very different language than we spoke 200 to 300 years ago. We are adamant about who we are as a people and our culture. When we go to spaces like Honduras, they had people eager to learn and eager to participate because they know they're of Garifuna descent, but they don't necessarily know anything more. So we were the first set of teachers. I know through meeting an individual from Dominica uh, many years ago, around the same time, 20, 30 years ago. You had Garifuna folk from Belize who went to the Carib reserves of Dominica to meet their basically distant cousins and have that engagement, because you see like in the island of Trinidad and Tobago, there is such a thing called First Peoples Day, where they celebrate the Aboriginal population, which is of Kalinago. And Carib is an outdated word, so for the purpose of this, I will use the word Kalinago. Their Kalinago population, and we have participated in that space. You have individuals like Roy Caetano and others from Belize who did participate in that exercise. We do have initiatives where Garifuna folk from Belize go into St. Vincent. This was expanded upon in our previous discussion with Miss Eleanor Bullock, as she spoke about her initiative in 2011, where a collective of Garifuna who live in the diaspora, particularly in the US, got together and they went to St. Vincent and they taught a bunch of young people the language, the dance, and various aspects of the culture. And one of our previous presenters, Miss Relicia Andrews, was a student of that. She partook in that exercise when she was much younger, and even now she still practices the language as much as she could through the exercises of nursery rhymes, other songs, and she teaches children what she learned. So you can see that even though we in Belize may not be where it started, we are definitely one of the front runners on helping to create a level of understanding in who we are as a people and creating a commonality, because we go to those spaces where Garifuna folk are and try to make them know that, hey, it is okay for you to talk your language. This might not be the way that you used to talk it, but this is the way we talk it now. So it gives them a space where they could communicate with us more frequently, more fluidly. And through initiatives like Battle of the Drums, you do have individuals from as far as Honduras and Guatemala who do partake in activities with us. You do have artists like Aurelio Martinez who does performances in Belize. You so when you look at it, the diaspora is as much involved as we are with them. So despite not having a border, we have a sense of oneness with the diaspora, despite facing cultural assimilation, as a lot of people are starting to identify with other groups instead of our group, despite it being their ethnic heritage. I think if anyone else would like to contribute to that, yeah.
Can I contribute?
Sure, of course.
Okay. I believe that people of Garifuna descent have been able to keep their cultural identity because of that struggle. Many people might see struggle as something as, yeah, the struggle is supposed to be broken. Yes, we went through a lot. Yeah, we went through displacement, we went through exile, we went through wars, we went through so many different things that should have caused elimination of this group of people. But because of all that struggles and because of the pride that we carried ourselves with, the Garifuna people have been able to exist within these different eras, I believe, successfully, with challenges still, yes. But I believe Garifuna people are who we are and still the way how we are and existent and still living because of the struggle. The struggle created something different within us, and because of the way how we went through that struggle, and it's not so far back, we have been able to hold on to our identity somewhat. Believe the struggle was beneficial and negative because we lost many of our ancestors. But I believe the struggle that we faced kept us this way. So, like what Emilio said, we need to find more commonality between ourselves and stop fighting each other and stop finding the reasons not to work with each other and find the reasons we should be working with each other. I think that's the next step to Garifuna preservation. Then we struggled, we survived. Now it's time for us to find commonality within each other to move forward to the next step. And I agree with what Emilio said. Mm,
Okay.
mm.
In regards to the question, I would just make it simple, and there's a form of expression, a spiritual expression that Garifuna, we as Garifuna people use, and it's called Aubu Amurunu, and I for you and you for me. For me, spirituality is I smile with you, and the human thing to do is to smile back. And so when it comes to what keeps us intact, it will be our spirituality. I know some people are normally taught to mix religion and spirituality together and cannot separate them, but we have always been a spiritual people. And no matter where you go, like what Aurelia would say, music is a spiritual, not spiritual, universal language. And so whenever we are in a Garifuna territory, there is, even if you speak English going to Honduras, Hondurans will receive you. They just need to see the color of your skin. They just need to know that you can punta. And sometimes there is no need for words, right? But the spirituality is what keeps us together, no matter where we are.
Okay, with that, I think we should go into this next question. This one is from Miss Monley Aspingale. Please, hopefully, I pronounce your name correct. If not, I apologize. Um, is there a significant difference between the Garifuna culture spread throughout the Caribbean? I think yes and no, because when you look at the way how the culture has progressed to this point, you definitely have to take into account that it has also survived in a sense of isolation in these different pockets. So when you look at the practices that happen in Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, as well as Belize, and the diaspora, in these different spaces, we had to find ways to adapt. And with that, you might find different variations, but the core of it is still intact. Because a Garifuna drummer from Honduras beats slightly different from a Garifuna drummer in Belize, beats slightly different from a Garifuna drummer from Nicaragua. So we definitely evolve over time. Um, and you have to also take into consideration that there's a level of access you have in these different spaces. Now, we in Belize have had the privilege of being a community who exists along the sea, but then you also have communities who are not along the sea. Like I'm from Bamapan. You have Garifuna community like Georgetown, where the sea is a part of our community and a part of our lifestyle, a part of our culture, yes. But then, so we can participate necessarily in Urume the same way that someone from Dangiga, someone from Belize City, someone from PG or wherever might be able to participate. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't find other ways. We might not be able to partake in that one aspect of culture, but we definitely try to find ways to partake in other aspects. And it's the same thing with those who live in the diaspora, those who live in the US. You might not have a mortar and pistol to make hudut. But believe me, if a person determined they will find a way to make it, you know. So it leads to a question of authenticity, but I think it's more understanding the intent behind what the person is doing, where the person is coming from, and what the person is trying to accomplish, so as to keep to preserve themselves in those different spaces.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah. To answer Monali's question, the Garifuna culture throughout the entire diaspora is the same. It's just that we just need to understand that culture evolves through time and space because of all the influences that would have been experienced during the journey, and as well as all the other ethnicities that come in and all the globalization points that would affect the way we are. There will always be something to change. There will always be something that changes among a people, because when you look locally, I can tell when somebody from Georgetown speaks that that person is from Georgetown. That's by the Garifuna accent. I can tell when somebody from Corozal speaks Creole. You can hear the differentiation.
Yes, I would just like to say what the other guys said, that especially what Emilio and Mr. Rasheed said, that Garifuna, the culture evolved through time and space. I agree with what Mr. Emilio said. I just have to support both comments, what Mr. Rasheed and what Emilio said.
Okay, so we have another question from the same individual, Miss Monelly. And the question is, what are some of the harmful stereotypes about the Garifuna culture that stunt the growth and extension to the rest of the country and Caribbean? Well, hopefully we don't. All right. So the most politically correct way to answer this question is that, when it came to us being in Belize, even when you look at documents dating 1802, we were seen as cannibals. We had a series of different things affecting our integration into Belizean society. We were subjected to having a certain space that we lived, which would have been the most northern community being Dangriga, and anywhere between Dangriga and now PG was where you found Garifuna communities. Eventually over time, we were allowed to move inland and move into more rural communities because of the shortage of laborers, of the shortage of teachers and civil servants. So, despite some of the pre-existing, even like in texts like Bekalam, you see a level of prejudice because in Bekalam, I remember there was they showed two examples of Garifuna folk. One being Nurse Palacio riding in the distance, heading to work in the early morning or in the evening, and then the second being that there was a person who would sell things, and Becca even told her mother, "One day I will marry the Carib man," and her mother slapped her. So it shows there's a level of discontentment between certain communities, like that one in particular, which would be Becca is of Creole descent. So it's definitely something that exists. I won't deny that. It has hindered us from working together and forming a strong bond as a community, as a Belizean, help form a Belizean identity in the past. It still exists to some degree. I won't deny that also. But it's something that we've learned to move past in some aspects, but we still have a long way to go. And we are definitely more well received now than we've ever been as a community, despite some of the shortcomings that the English implanted into Belizean society when we first originally got here.
On the what are some of the harmful stereotypes that Dangriga face, that Garifuna face, culture face? I believe that some of the harmful stereotypes are the pitting of the two Afro descendants group against each other for intentionally divide and conquer, um, and so the separation of us stating that, like what Rashid said, that Garifuna are cannibals or do not go, the Garifuna go and the Creole do not engage with each other. Those people are wild and they pit us that some one group is supposed to be public servants and some supposed to be educators, and that alone caused some conflict within our context because up to this day, even though it's better now, we have a cultural dynamic where other ethnic group consistently perpetuate negativity towards the Garifuna people within this Belizean context. It's generational, but luckily to some generational impacts of that is now going down because many people are not sharing those same ideas. But many families within our Belizean context still perpetuate such things as do not intermarry with a Garifuna person, do not bring a Garifuna person to my home, a Garifuna person is not productive, a Garifuna person is not wealthy. They are just singers, dancers, and so on and so forth, and they do not even take the singing and the dancing and talk about it on a higher level. They speak of it only of entertainment to them. I believe that those are some of the conflicts that are harming our young people because of that constant bombardment of negativity towards their identity. I believe that is affecting that has harmed the Guaranagar in Belize. That's what I have to say on that.
We also have to take into consideration the fact that our spirituality is definitely something other communities don't. The realm of spirituality and the way how we go about practice spirituality is definitely something alien to others who only subscribe to Western belief system. So because we have a particular spiritual path and we believe in certain things and we have certain ceremonies, that has definitely caused a level of alienation as us as a people because we are one of the few groups in Belize who actually do practice our spiritual rituals and activities openly. Uh, we identify through acknowledging these things. Our ancestors walk with us wherever we go, and we are not shy of saying that. You know, these are things that not everyone might necessarily subscribe to, which is fine. Some communities are able to, and they would see, uh, like, you would see certain communities, they would understand because you see, we are still a Afro Caribbean group. So some of our practices have been picked up over the years, and they're practiced in other spaces. So even if you might not necessarily subscribe to our belief system when it comes to our spirituality, there are certain things you're still able to identify with us with. Um, but it's just the fact that, over the years, people have become much more open with understanding our spirituality. You have a lot of documentaries about different realms of rituals like Dogo to help people understand different aspects, because people don't necessarily need to understand everything, but they need to respect us as a people. And it's that realm of respect is where there was that divide. But over the years, I do believe that some individuals are growing to respect us more as a people when it comes to our spirituality.
I would definitely say the devil worship situation, because any any religion or spiritual practice that is not Christianity, especially in the Americas, is devil worship. And I think that many people lost their spiritual identity in the Caribbean and Central America. So if you are making fun of someone's spirituality who kept it because you don't have your own, then I think the problem is not with who we are, but the loss of identity from a people. And besides that, you have one that came up a couple decades ago, which is Garifuna people being lazy. When these owners of these industries like banana and citrus wanted to get immigrants to come in from the other countries for cheap labor, um, the Garifuna people were cast aside when it comes to planting of the oranges and the bananas in the south. So those are two things that I can point out for now, because I want to keep it short.
Okay. I think now I know Amelia briefly touched on this, but is to have we have one more question from a Marissa Carventas, and then I think we will then head into closing remarks. Okay,
Am I supposed to answer, or you want?
let's try that again. There's a question. No. Question is okay. It's now on the screen, and it's directed to you, Emilio. You recognize that the educational system has failed us. How can our Belizean education system help to preserve the Guaranagar culture?
I think if you go
I
inside a
think you already
classroom and
answered that, but
yes,
definitely.
but if you look inside a typical, let's say, primary school classroom, you're going to see English and math coming every day, but you're going to see social studies like twice or thrice. You're going to see arts and physical education maybe like once for the week. Yeah, so that is an example of how our minds work when it comes to being very biased uh, and disrespectful and arrogant, because we think that one thing is always better than the other. But more so when it comes to the education system, how it can preserve the Garifuna culture is by emphasizing on the rights of a people, because many of us don't know how to move forward because we have not recognized our rights, our human rights. It's just mostly a topic taught for a couple of days or weeks in a term for the entire year, right? So the conversation after that does not continue. So when someone grows up into a teenager and then the conversation is not about rights, even though rights has to do with everything that we do as Belize and as Garifuna, I believe that the schools need to reevaluate like to revise the pieces of the education system. My uncle will tell you that he is not going to use many things out of a textbook to children who have never seen a kangaroo or have never seen snow. He's going to formulate his own sentences. Now, there are two types of teachers. There are those who were taught, and there are those who learned. Teachers who learned are not going to teach children. They are going to create a learning environment so that they can learn, so that they can be stimulated to come up with ideas and come up with even formulas of their own. Now, children are normally a reflection of the great teachers that they had, and sometimes they can be a victim of the teachers that did not do an effective job. So, regarding how the system can help, is by letting us know, or even our own Garifuna teachers emphasize on the rights of a child and let them know that they need to learn the other human rights that are affiliated with their daily lives and the things that we are entitled to as a people when it comes to indigenous rights. Those things are going to help change the attitudes, change the conversations among the children, and furthermore, it is going to transcend into the normal conversation. If one can see.
Just to add to that, um, when we look at the education system in Belize, we have to think of a couple of things. One, we're trying to create a standardized level of of knowledge that will not only be we are sorry, we are creating a level of knowledge for the future of Belize, but then we also have to consider the fact that some things are better done outside of the classroom. So we have to think of new ways of teaching. Because, like Amelia said, certain teachers would never teach something about snow or about a kangaroo or about climbing Mount Everest because that doesn't apply to our reality. If, let's say, when they have social studies and they talk about milpa farms, if we have the right teacher, they might try to take you to a milpa farm and explain to you the history, or try to have someone's parent who is a farmer come in and talk to you about that tradition if they are of Mayan descent. And we could go even a step further where when it comes to Garifuna culture, we don't just have these conversations around November 19th. We have them year round. We find different ways to incorporate various aspects of our community, um, ethnic community, meaning from the different cultures that exist in Belize, and put them in the classroom and let them not just be, okay, when the 19th come around, we're going to talk about this group. And when this time of year come around, we talk about that group. So that when you do leave and go into high school, you have a strong sense of community and you could definitely source different things and have a deeper sense of self. Because it's only when some people get to the secondary institution level, like UB, then they start to take subjects like Belizean studies. Because in high school in the West, you couldn't take Belizean studies. What was offered was social studies, but it was given in the aspect of who are us as a member of the Caribbean society. So we talk about family structure, we talk about family structure, we talk about different problems happening in different parts of the Caribbean, but we kind of alienate ourselves too because yes, we are a part of the Caribbean, but we're also a part of Central America, and we also are a part of, but they don't necessarily talk about us the same way we talk about them as much. So with finding our place in everything, knowing that we have a place, and then expanding from there, because you have a lot of young people who don't have a sense of self, and it's only when certain time of year come around, or if their family is one who practices X, Y, and Z, then they have privilege of information to that extent. But if you grow up in an urban setting, let's say Corozal Town or Belize City or San Ignacio, and your parents aren't practitioners of your culture, and they don't have anyone in your community who would take the time to teach you outside of the classroom to make up for the fact that the school is not teaching you certain things, then it creates like a vacuum, and then that would make you more prone to gravitate towards other cultures because you identify more with them because you have more access to that culture, more information. Um, which is why you have a lot of young people gravitating to dancehall culture. That's their reality. You know, they don't identify with Garifuna culture the same way because they're like, well, that's what our parents practice. That's what our grandparents practice. I I at a Gaza I could relate to cartel more, even though, and that speaks to their reality, unfortunately. So we have to have a strong sense of who we are as a people. We have to find ways of incorporating the beliefs and identity, talking about various cultures in the classroom setting and making the information much more relevant than it is now. Yes, you do have the new Caribbean studies syllabus for the high school level, but that's fairly new, so that's going to take some years for that to sink in before that holds any weight for the new generation coming up. And even we have to consider the fact that too, Belizean studies at University of Belize is an elective. It's not mandatory. The same way how when I went to SJC, I had to take a theology course. They should make Belizean studies a mandatory course because some people are well going close to 30 and don't know anything besides that George Price exists, that we have Maya ruins in Belize, and that people beat drum on November 19th, which is sad, which is seriously sad.
So, in terms of the response to the medication and how it can help preserve Garifuna culture, I believe that they should the system, the government should do, not the government, the people through governance should do like what they do in parts of Honduras, where we have communities where they have Garifuna and English being taught within Garifuna communities to ensure the preservation of not necessarily culture, but the language, the Garifuna language within these communities. It's not done in many communities within Honduras, but it's done in some. That effort could be done through the influencers, the people, and the engagement with governance. I think that should be where the way how the education system can assist Garifuna communities within the preservation of the language, of our culture, Sorry to say that. True language.
I did
Okay.
I
And
taught a course this week and ended it
Mm,
today. Songwriters business. A lot of people are speaking about the music business, but they don't know the basis of music
mm.
business. And it goes right back to the rights that protect you as a creator. And knowing your rights means that you will realize that you are the boss of the music industry because you wrote the song and then you dictate the pace. But because you don't know your rights, everybody will be taking advantage of you. And we need to have more conversations about these things, especially when it comes to street laws, because that's one of the reasons why the police would take advantage of somebody, because they don't know how to deal with the law regarding the rights. So it's very important that we go back. We need to write our own books, like what Marissa said. We need to forge what is called the Belize education system. What we call this right now, since the beginning of time, has nothing to do with us. And we need to change that and put it into perspective, or else I don't even claim it. I don't claim what that system is because it doesn't identify who I am. And I'm sure that many people would feel the same way, especially those young people who are growing up now and have like an open mind and they can easily recognize the nonsense that are being taught in schools. So they will recognize that entrepreneurs are the ones who build a nation, and they are going to go about their own business doing what they need to do, but they also have to have the attitude of being somebody who will create and build.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Now we're gonna go to the last question, and this would be: where do we see ourselves, or where do the two of you see the Garifuna community in 20 to 30 years? And the floor is open.
I see in the next 20 to 30 years, I see the Garifuna, if we continue on this trajectory of divisiveness, of complaining, of dependency, of just waiting for an opportunity to be handing us, I see us being worse off and losing most of our cultural practices and language. I see us, because if we continue on this trend of just being divided and being selective and not wanting to support each other, how is it possible that whatever years and years of success, preservation happened from St. Vincent to now, because of struggles and unity and having to unite to survive, if we can't even in the peaceful Belize, we can't even get together to unite under one cause or even work together or even use each other resources to ensure that we grow. I don't see us in the next 20 to 35 years having anything to celebrate. I don't see nothing to celebrate in the next 20 to 30 years. But if we unite together, not unite, because divisiveness happen in our culture. No make nobody fool you that the only Garifuna people not work together. The only Garifuna people not have a difficulty working. And happen at everybody. But one thing where other groups have done, they have found one commonality, which many of them are economics, and they found that finance and entrepreneurship is that commonality, and they work towards that commonality. So united. I think that only way we will be better in the next 20 to 35 years. Because if we divided, we now have nothing to celebrate, and we will not be able to have a discussion like this again. It will be told like a history book that something that is no longer there in the next 20 to 30 years if we continue on this path. That's my perspective.
10 to 30 years?
20 to 30.
20 to 30. In 20 to 30 years, I see Garifuna people having economic power, political power, all the powers that are necessary to reclaim. Because when we handed those over some time ago, we really started to lose everything at a faster pace. And we will be in a position whereby the families will be the first educators of the children. Because we always talk about the children are the future and stuff like that, but we don't invest significantly, and this is why I had to put people in check once, probably last year when I was a guest speaker. I had to be very bold, and I seemed very arrogant and everything else that people would criticize me about, but I had to tell it as like it is, and I had to emphasize that we need to raise our children. We are not involved in the children's development, holistic development. As a teacher, as an educator at the high school, sometimes parents just come and take the children to the school and they don't come back until the end of the year. And the children are raising themselves, so when they don't know something, they're being judged and criticized and bashed on and looked down upon. We need to change that culture and be more of a community. We need to regain back the aspects of the community. So in the next 10, 20 to 30 years, we are going to have a situation where all of these things are would have changed because the conversation has already started. And we need to look at not what we have lost, not what we don't have, but the things that are in front of us. When I went to Haiti in 2015, I've never seen so many Black people in one space before in my entire life. And they were very good at working the land,
I went
using
through
what
the
they
same
have, the
thing in
resources,
Barbados.
And so if you don't learn to use what you have, then there is no use of getting more things because you won't be able to manage. So I believe that there are positive things that are coming. And I believe that the COVID pandemic and then the change in political power has taught a lot of people what they need to know in order to start the change. But remember, this cannot be a conversation. I am not interested in hearing people's conversations and sad stories and stuff like that. I want to know what your intentions are. Then you come to somebody like me, and then we start to work on building what you need to build. The time of complaining and blaming everybody is over, and we need to move forward. There is no more backward thinking that's necessary for our development.
Okay. With that said, I'm on the fence. I think that you do have a lot of Garifuna folk living in other spaces. So there is the chance that the folk living in the US and other parts of the world coming back to Belize and investing heavily. I would hope that that happened. And then that would create a resurgence of the culture. But it wouldn't be. The thing is in Belize that you have to think about the fact that because we're so ethnically diverse, everyone is fighting for a space. Now, if we start looking at ourselves as one and we start to look at ourselves as a collective, I feel and respect each other's individual differences, we can definitely grow to be far more stronger as a people because you do have more Belizeans writing than ever before. It's easier to get published now. It's easier for us. We don't have to travel all the way to England to perform. We can perform from the safety of our rooms if another pandemic starts. It wouldn't be the end of the world. We are strong people. We've found ways to survive in other spaces, and we will continue to survive with whatever situation that we're placed in. It's just a matter of having a strong sense of who we are, where we want to go, and a strong sense of self and being able to control the narrative on being able to control what our narrative is and how it is projected in the world. You know, with that said, I would like to thank Mr. Emilio Thomas and Jamall Swaso for joining me tonight. This has definitely been an insightful and engaging discussion. Thank you to those who have stayed with us for the past hour and a half. I know it was a very loaded conversation. We touched on a lot of different things, and this might be the end of this three-part series that was conducted by the Heritage Education Network, but it won't be the end of these type of conversation. These type of conversation will definitely continue to happen over the next 10 to 20, 30 years. But like Emilio said, it can't just conversation. There needs to be action behind it. I'd like to thank our directors of Heritage Education Network watching, like Miss Rebecca Friedel Whitley Houston, Miss Sylvia Batty, Miss April Martinez, and Miss Ella Bekensky. And all of you who wrote in the comment section, like Miss Monali Aspingal, Miss John Arana, Victor Morga, Marissa Carventas, Joshua Arana, who's a study supporter of the Heritage Education Network, Miss Lynn Codd, and Deshane Lopez. Thank you all for being with us 1 week exactly after the 19th of November, which is very relevant because, like I said before, we need to have these conversations not only on the 19th, but after the 19th. It has to be year round. This is a part of the Garifuna Project, which is an ongoing project that the Heritage Education Network has adopted, promoting Garifuna culture, language, and various aspects. We are working hard to update our website with articles pertaining Garifuna culture, Garifuna language, and various aspects like that. So this isn't the first and last of this. We hope to continue this next year. So thank you all for being with us and good night.